You know, that song reminds me, about us doing our part, waking up and doing our part. And I gotta say, Unity of Nashville has definitely done their part. When I think about, right now, just thinking about myself standing here, Unity of Nashville has spoken. I just think about this in a second and take it all in. There is often times where we want to take really comfortable choices, where we want to take things that may not be as controversial or maybe a little hard. But this community did something. And I remember talking to my mentor before I came, and I told him that I was coming here, and he said, I love you, but I don't want you to take this the wrong way. He said, but it's not about you. He said, it doesn't say anything about you, even though you may have a great resume. It says something deeply about Unity of Nashville. And what he said to me, and that was just hit me, because I thought, oh my Lord, this congregation brought a Latina, a Latinx woman to the South. Not only that, let me add to that, y'all. A Latina lesbian Latinx woman to the South. Let me add to that. A Latina Latinx woman that is married to her wife, who is an immigrant and Spanish dominant. Oh my word. And I'm a Yankee. I'm from the North. But that says a lot. So we are all here doing our part. We are all here opening up that world and being that world, that reflection, and taking a stand for what we believe to be true. And so I just am honored and grateful to be here. So this month, what have we been talking about? We've been talking about the blessings of harvest. And today we're going to be talking about how do we grow our seeds? How do we water and grow our seeds? In the last few weeks, we started with the blessings of harvest, looking at how our harvest has come, all the wonderful things that we have in this congregation and in our life. And then we moved on to look at how do we start clearing spaces? So once we've gotten all of this wonderful harvest, now it's time to clear the space again, prepare the land, prepare ourselves for yet another time of harvest. So we've talked a lot about that holy weed whacking policy, the holy weed whacking, where we gotta, again, just start getting our minds right, start connecting more deeply with Spirit, letting go of things that are falsehoods, lack and limitation that we have in our minds that we know to not be the truth of our being. And then preparing the ground and planting the seeds. So if you missed any of the series, you can go onto YouTube. We have a new YouTube page. The link is in the newsletter, so open up your newsletters, y'all. And also they're on our Facebook, our website rather, so you can catch up. So today we're talking about growing. How do things grow? So we left off last week where we're talking about seeds and planting the seeds. But then how does that growth happen? I know I've asked before, and we've got some gardeners in the group, right? We've got some gardeners here, right? We've got folks that have, and I'm not really a fully fledged gardener, but I begun dabbling over the last few years. And when I started to really get into gardening and going outside and just watching the miracle of life, I was so taken by what happens. And one of the first things that I've looked at that I really, really just loved was my ferns. I have this, in Chicago, I had this amazing area with just ferns. Anybody have ferns in their garden? And if you see how they grow, I had never seen how ferns grow. When they start to peek up off the ground, they have this almost little spiral nature to them, right? And you see this beautiful thing. You're like, what is that? And all of a sudden it just starts growing and growing, and pow, before you know it, it's this amazing, luscious, beautiful fern. And I was so taken by that. Like, how does that happen? And the first time I noticed it, that when I bought my house, I was really enamored. But then what happened? I had no idea how to take care of my lawn, so they died. They were all yucky and brown and gross. And I was so sad because I thought, oh man, they're not going to come back. But then what happened? The next year, I go out, springtime, and bam, I see again that beautiful little swirl coming through this little pod, and then all of a sudden, it's this amazing fern. And that got me to thinking, how is that all of this beautiful growth is encoded in life? How is it just happening without us even trying? And how is it still happening even though we sometimes squelch it, we kill it? You know, our lives are like that as well. So today I want us to walk through this idea of how no matter what happens in our life, we are just as resilient. We can be just as determined and zealous and committed to the beauty of life. We don't even have to do anything. That's the amazing part. We're taught that we have to work so hard. Did you all come from spiritual traditions or homes or cultures where you're taught that you have to work so hard to get something? And that's such a fallacy. That is one of the weeds that we have to whack, because life is not that complicated overall. Yes, we go through challenging times. Yes, we go through situations. But the reality is that if we connect to that circle of life, if we connect to that resilience and that beauty and that determination and that something that happens independent of us, life can be just like that fern, coming back every season, facing those odds, facing those challenges, and being in its splendor. How do we do that? Every idea that we have is a seed. And that says something powerful, because we then have to think, what are my thoughts? What am I thinking? What am I planting? And what is going to grow? I can't answer that. That's for everyone to decide. But the ideas in our mind, which also are the feelings that we feel, the words that we speak, and the actions that we take, they germinate, they sprout, and they grow. So it behooves us to really take that time to sort of have that mental house cleaning, that mental time daily where we sort of say, how are we aligning with spirit? Where did I maybe fall off the mark? And not, again, in the form of judgment or critique or, mea culpa, right? We're like, slapping ourselves for what we did or didn't do. But just taking that stock and then realigning and reinforcing truth. Seed words are planted in omnipresent spiritual substance. When we do that, we allow it to germinate and grow and have this amazing harvest, this beautiful fruit of the Spirit that we get to harvest. Now, just as farmers select seeds, right? You don't just plant any old thing. You're looking at the type of seed. Is it an award-winning seed? Is it shown its true purpose? Has it shown that this might work? Am I willing to maybe be curious and play with this seed and see what will happen? So just as a farmer selects the best seed for planting, we select our thoughts, words, feelings, and actions to bring forth a rich harvest. I want to share a Charles Fillmore quote, and unfortunately the date was not available, but we know it was a long time ago. And he says this: "But each man is a gardener who has absolute charge of his mind and can determine just what kind of seeds shall be planted in his domain. What he says in law in the garden, of which he can control. If he is lax, shiftless, and ignorant of his privileges, he may let the thistle seeds from foolish minds blow over his fence and take root in his garden. but it's not at all necessary. By his simple word of command, he can protect his domain from all intruders. Not all men know this. Nevertheless, it is true. So today I want us to think about, we're planting. How do we do that command to be able to know what we're planting? And how do we be able to protect our spiritual garden? Because once we plant it, there is a need to protect it. So what does that mean? I'd like us to turn today to Matthew, Gospel of Matthew, chapter 13, verses 24 to 30. And it's about the parable of the weeds, or parable of the tares, as they call it. Tares are weeds. And so in this chapter, Jesus is talking to the disciples and to others, and they're asking him, what if I plant the seeds like a farmer and someone comes in the middle of the night and plants some weeds? What should I do? And so he tells a story where the workers come to a farmer and say to him that somebody has planted all of these weeds. And they're really excited and really worried and concerned that, oh my God, the wheat is going to be destroyed. These weeds are going to destroy the wheat. And he says, no, don't pull them out. Don't worry about it. And they're looking at him like, what is that? How is that possible? These things are going to choke the life out of the weeds. And he says to them, no, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest, and at the harvest time I will tell the reapers, collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. So he tells them not to worry. There's so much in this passage. Maybe you can go home and kind of play with this a little bit. Matthew 13, 24 to 30. But what we're going to learn through this, what we want to talk about here today, is a couple of things. The first thing is this. He's saying we're mixing the quote-unquote good with the bad. This is another weed that we need to whack. We've been taught in our culture that there are these diametrically opposed forces, these things that we have to, there's something that's good and something that's bad, right? All of these things that go against each other. But what we're learning here is that sometimes the quote-unquote bad things are really an opportunity for us. Have you ever had something happen in your life that felt like it was a challenge, that felt like it was a bad thing, that felt like it was a bad relationship, and yet there was something in that experience that brought you to higher purpose? There was something in that experience that brought you to a higher connection or knowing of yourself or God. And so this is the first thing we learn here. When we plant our garden, there are going to be things that happen that look like they might be bad. They look like they're going to be against us. They look like there's somebody that's not in alignment with us. But we have to understand that when we focus on these weeds only, if we focus on what others think of us, when we focus on if other people are okay with us coming to Unity of Nashville, or other people are okay with us making changes in our life, or other people are okay with us taking stands, we're focusing on those weeds and we're not focusing on ourselves. They become a mental distraction when we're focusing constantly on picking apart everything that's happening, or thinking that everything that we need to get rid of in our life that doesn't align perfectly with what we think should. Again, that's for you to think about. One thing I always thought was funny when I started therapy years ago, and actually it was the same time that I started Unity Church, my therapist would tell me, what others think of you is not your business. What others think of you is not your business. Be of the business of your business. And that's what we have to learn, is that those weeds can be distractions sometimes. We just let them be. We let them be, and ultimately what happens is when harvest comes, they just fall away. They'll make themselves known. They'll scatter. We'll know what needs to happen. The other thing that I really, with this, we have to also be careful, because sometimes when we get into truth principle, when we start practicing and really want to manifest and do these spiritual treatments and see our lives change, we sometimes throw the baby, as they say it, in our culture, throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're like, raise the ground, change my life, change everything, get rid of the husband, whatever. And sometimes that's not really the answer. The answer is to take it slow. That's part of what this passage is also telling us, to just have some patience in the process, to not be so hasty to make a decision, to not be so hurried to be in this flow of change. We are in the flow of change, but it takes time. It takes time. And the other thing is, we can't be impatient, because sometimes when we've planted the seeds, and maybe we see some growth, and then we see these weeds or see these things happening, we become impatient or nervous or fearful, or we think we're doing something wrong. Maybe I didn't pray hard enough. Maybe I didn't ask for prayer requests the way I should have. Maybe I'm not doing this affirmative prayer or meditation thing right. And again, it is not for us to go there. The thing for us is to have compassion for ourselves in this process. Let me tell you all, this stuff is hard. Is it hard? Yeah. I mean, in the bigger scheme of things, it's easy, as I said, once we practice and once we start allowing Spirit to flow through our lives. But let me say, if it was easy, I would be walking on water right now like Jesus. We all would be floating in the ethers. But that's what we come here as human beings into this iteration of life to do, is to practice that. But sometimes it is difficult. So it calls for us to be compassionate with ourselves and others. It calls for us to just have patience and know that these changes take time, and that we just keep at it with that faith and that trust and the knowing. Because again, the fern will always come through. The sun, the God, will always shine and will always nurture and comfort and allow for that growth to happen. We have to remember, sometimes we get caught up with what other people are doing, as I said. Nothing can keep us from our spiritual purpose. Nothing and no one can keep us from who we are meant to be in this iteration of life. As they say, haters gonna hate. Haters gonna hate, but we don't worry about that. We have to be focused on ourselves and what we've come here to do, and hold the vision of what we want. This learning process is about ups and downs. And one of the things I'll share with you in terms of a practical Christianity thing to do is visioning. So you have your toolbox. Who has their unity toolbox, their new thought toolbox, their metaphysical toolbox, and everyone has different tools in there. But we have prayer, we have meditation, we have affirmative statements, we have denials. But the other thing we can use is visualization. We think of all of these things in popular culture, especially. They give us these signals. It's like woo-woo, right? All of this stuff is woo-woo. All of this stuff is kind of whatever. But science has proven what unity has known for over 100 years. And that is what we have in our mind, what we practice in our mind, the seeds that we plant and that we water and that we allow the sun to shine in grow. Do you know that Olympic teams visualize performances? Did anybody know that Olympic teams actively do, since the 60s, Billie Jean King from our country was one of the tennis players to use that. And they use that diligently as part of the Olympic practice and conditioning. What are they doing? They are mentally conditioning their minds to win. They are mentally conditioning their minds to see. And it's not just, I want to do this. It's, I'm here. What do I see? What do I feel? What do I smell? What do I taste? What am I feeling? Am I feeling joy? So if you have something in your life that you're trying to grow, use that. Take time every day to just feel into all of that. Use your senses as if it were so. This is a winning formula. There wouldn't be a retinue of psychologists that work this with all the Olympic athletes if it was not something that actually worked. If you've never done it before, play with it. If you haven't done it in a while or you haven't done it more seriously, try it. But I invite everyone to use these things. And maybe this is not something for you, but try something. Maybe you try something new. You plant a new seed with your other seeds to find something that your spirit is calling you to learn how to then do that deeper connection. As I move to conclude, I just want us to remember that watering and that sun, looking and recognizing our thoughts, our feelings, our words, and our actions. And the key to growth in all this is just watching and waiting. But we're some impatient folks, aren't we? Don't we want this, like, again, the fast food culture, like right away, right now, make it easy. But it's not. Watching and waiting for that glorious harvest time to come. We have to have patience, and we can't be discouraged because there will be those weeds that come up. But mostly what we have to have is faith and trust that we are okay, that we are supported by a universe that loves us, and we have everything that we need within us to have that harvest come again. So we set it and forget it. That's hard because we want to overwater sometimes. We want to do that. Set it, forget it. Do your work, but then allow the universe, the grace of God, the Holy Spirit, the energetic resonance, whatever you want to call it, allow it to support you and be your partner in this process. You don't do it alone, and you use your community here as well to support yourself. Make sense? Yes, makes sense. Let's take that into a time of meditation. I'm going to invite you all to just close your eyes. And as meditation today, what I'd like to do is share with you, as our meditation focus, a meditation that was from Myrtle Fillmore, probably about 80 to 100 years ago. And it's called God's Garden. So I invite you to just take a minute to allow everything that's been said here today, everything that you're feeling and thinking, to just download, upload. Just have a minute to integrate into your mind, body, and soul. Whatever you came here for is here for you, not of my doing, but of your doing and your connection with God. And so we allow for that space right now. We allow for that deeper knowing. We allow for the truth of our being to really wake us up, wake up to who we truly are and all the blessings that are yet to pour out into our lives. It is the joy of the sunshine that fills my soul and wings my voice as it flows out to you. It is as impersonal and I trust as welcome as a breeze coming in at your open window. And like the sunshine and fall air, it is laden with God's blessings for you. Your garden out there within as well is aglow with beauty and color. You have joyous faith in the abilities of each seed to bring forth of its kind. You do not question your ability to prepare the soil in the ministries of the unfolding needs, and so you cooperate with the natural law. Yet in the preparation of such results, you have officiated in the miracle of growth and have filled the chalice of your brown garden with the beauty and splendor of God's increase. The frequent occurrence of this miracle has established your faith in a law which decrees that you shall reap as you sow. You are not anxious, you do not doubt, you do not question. You consider it your right to expect the freeing power to bless your work with success. You are pleased and satisfied with results of the natural law, and this should prompt you to exercise the same faith and spiritual law of your own consciousness. For here, too, you prepare the soil of your mind. Plant the kind of seed that you desire to have bud and blossom and fruit in your own soul and body. Your soul and body are God's garden too. Here, the Creator works through your consciousness with light and love and life to reproduce the beautiful patterns of your thoughts into the chalice of your soul, which your faith holds wide. God pours its own ideas which take root in your desires, your acts, and your very flesh. The miracle of growth are being performed all the time. It is always springtime in the soul. You are doing in spirit just what the seeds in the garden have done. You prepare the garden of mind and heart with liberal words of truth. In so doing, you are contacting the Christ Spirit and making use of a veritable element of being and bringing into visibility the beauty and perfection of God's ideal human and of heaven, which are your home. And your words of life and health, joy and truth are God's way, and eternally bloom forth the radiance of their kind in your life today and always. Breathe that in and breathe that out. The radiance, the bloom, the fruit, the harvest. We breathe all of that in and allow it to seed, germinate, and sprout within. And so it is, and so we let it be through the name and through the nature of the Christ consciousness and the Christ within. Amen. Whew. Wasn't that beautiful? That was not my words, by the way. That was Myrtle Fillmore. Thankful for Myrtle Fillmore and all of her beautiful words and wisdom here this evening. And we give thanks for each and every one of you for being here, for supporting this congregation, for being part of this community, and for being part of this ever-loving flow that we create here as we say thank you. Thank you.